Before we get started, I made a mistake on connecting the motor wires to the CC3D controller. This is the way they should be hooked up. Motor number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Motor number 1 should be the white wire. So it's the white wire with the red wire and the black wire all on one pin. That goes on motor number 1. Motor number 2 is the yellow wire. Motor number 3 rather, is the green wire. And motor number 4 will be the blue wire. So this is just how it goes. White, yellow, green, and blue. And that'll put all the motors in the right order. This will all be checked out during this video. Binding the Turnigy i6 and the receiver. And we'll use this terminal here, the very end. Let's put the plug on. And here you have your radio with the model set up. And we'll have it in the description where we go through setting up the transmitter. So everything is set up on your transmitter. Let's make sure it's off. We have the binding plug in. Let's put power to the quad. Oh, and definitely make sure the props are off. So you can see there's a fast blinking light here. Let's take your transmitter, hold the binding plug in, turn it on, and you'll see that it says binding and it says OK. That was real fast, but if you'll notice it said that. Okay. While the battery's still plugged in, let's take the binding plug out. And you'll notice right now it's a slow blinking light now. Leave the transmitter on. Let's unplug the binding plug. And now you'll notice the light on the receiver is solid. And now you'll see here that the transmitter is shown, that it's connected. We're bound. You can now unplug the quad. And when you unplug it, you'll see it doesn't show the receiver anymore. I'm sorry, doesn't show the receiver anymore. Let's plug it back in. And you'll see now that it shows it's connected. And again, you have a solid light on your receiver. You're bound, and it's double checked. Disconnect the battery, turn off the transmitter, and we're ready to move on. Just remember, transmitter is turned on first, then the battery is plugged in. When you're finished, you disconnect the battery, and then you turn off the transmitter. Transmitter on first, last off. We're ready to move on. This is Danny with QuadLugs, and we're doing the setup on a CC3D using LibrePilot and the Turnigy i6 transmitter. Let's get started. First of all, we've loaded the program and we have it pulled up. And we're going to plug in the quad with the USB into the computer. And here you can see that it's starting to populate the lights here, and it's showing that it's connected. So let's start the vehicle setup wizard. And read along with it, as we go. A lot of good information, and you really want to do that throughout the setup here. And of course, always have the props off, no props. Let's hit the upgrade. It's going to take a little while, but it's going to tell you right here when it's ready. And it's just wiping everything off the CC3D and reloading it. Never mind this. Okay, now it says next. Just kind of tells you about the board, the control board. PWM. That's how we hooked up the receiver. Of course, multi-rotor. X, quadcopter X. Rapid ESC. This gives you a wiring diagram. That's the way we wired it in. Now here you want to set the quad on a level surface. Don't move it, don't touch it. Let it, the calculation here is telling the board, the CC3D board, what's level. And it says it's done. Here we're going to calibrate the ESC, the 4-in-1 ESC rather. Click these three, or check these three. Again, make sure all the props are off. We'll hit start. Have your battery ready. Here we'll plug the battery into a quad. You'll get a few tones. And then hit stop. And we have a little hesitation there if you noticed. So in the tones, they didn't all go through at the same time. So let's unplug the battery. Let's recalibrate it. Hit start. Let's plug the battery in again. Now that's what we wanted to hear. There was no lagging in the tones. So you're seeing the difference between the two, the first one and the second one. The second one was the one we wanted. We'll hit next. Tells you some stuff. Again, props off. So here we're going to verify that the motors are in the proper location and that the rotation is correct. So leaving the battery plugged in. We hit start and then we'll move the slider up. This is indeed motor number 1. This motor here. This is the front. This is the back of the quad. So it's the front left. And then what we want, so we verified this is the proper motor. Rotation is actually turning counterclockwise. We want it to turn clockwise, so we're going to change the rotation on this one. So let's go ahead and hit stop. Now, we just need to switch any 2 of the 3 wires on the motor. Let's get that done. Okay. Now let's try it again. And yes, this is motor number 1, and it is turning clockwise. So we're going to go down to a slow turn, but still remaining turning at a steady rate. So we can adjust this with our arrow keys on the computer if you want to. And this is 1064. We're going to stop right there. Let's go to the next. So here we're going to verify that this is motor number 2. Indeed, it is motor number 2, and it is turning counterclockwise. We're in good shape. Let's set it again for the 1064, and we'll hit stop. Let's go to the next one. This is motor number 3, and we want it to be turning clockwise, and it's turning counterclockwise. So let's switch any 2 of the 3 motor wires. Okay, we're done there. Let's try it again. Again, this is motor number 3, and it's turning clockwise. We're in good shape. Let's set this on 1064. And again, the last motor, that is motor number 4, that is the proper location. And it is turning counterclockwise. Let's set this thing at 1064. We're in good shape. Let's continue. This gives you some pre-setups on some of these quads that are out. Ours works really good. Box quad or QuadLugs, all the QuadLugs work really, really well on generic Quad X. And that's what we're going to pick. Let's move on. And then let's save it. Next, we're going to do the transmitter setup. So let's go ahead and turn our transmitter on. And we went through binding the transmitter to the receiver prior. You just want to make sure that's done. And we hit OK. Let's hit next. We want acro. Mode 2, that's the throttle and the rudder on the left, and aileron and elevator on the right. Here it wants us to move the throttle, aileron, elevator, and rudder. And as we move that, it stops. Let's pick this switch, switch C, and that's going to be our mode switch. And you can see it moving there. These other switches here we're not going to use, so let's just skip, 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 and skip. So it wants you to center up all the sticks. And let's put the mode switch in the center. You know, we have high, medium, and low. So let's put it in the middle. We'll hit next. I want you to move to all the far corners. And what it's doing is telling the transmitter is telling the controller all about the transmitter. So we're doing that now. We're going to do it to this stick, all the 4 corners. Do it a few times. And we'll do the mode switch. And you'll see it moving there. Right there. So we go to next. Now it wants us to make sure that everything is moving in the proper direction. So move the throttle up and down. That's correct. We'll move the rudder left and right. That's correct. The aileron, we move it left, right. That's correct. Elevator or pitch, we'll move it down. Whoop, let's see, that's backwards. So let's change pitch. Now we go down, up, and it matches. So everything's matching. Now it just wants us to make sure. Double check. That's throttle's working okay. Rudder's working okay. Pitch or elevator's working okay. Aileron is working okay. Mode switch, you can see it moving there. Working okay. He wants to know how you want to arm it. We're going to do yaw right. And we'll hit save. And you'll see you'll get the check mark when it says it's good. If there was something wrong, it'd give you, an X saying it didn't go through. Okay. Fail safe we're going to get to in just a minute. Here's the fly modes, and if you move you'll see it moving, your mode switch. And what we're going to do here, we're going to keep it until you get experienced. You can change these rates, or these modes rather, whenever you get into, when you have more experience, you can change these up and do a lot more intense flying. And another thing too, I just want to say that there's a lot more that can be done with the CC3D controller. We're just touching a little bit of it to get you up and flying good. After that, I would definitely go through it. There's tons of stuff on the net, YouTube, of different things you can do, different settings you can set up with the CC3D. It is a lot more, there are a lot more you can think, there's a lot more you can do with it. This is just touching it. But for right now, we're going to set it, and that's the transmitter telling you it's been sitting too long, so I just need to move something. So we're going to leave this set here, and we're going to go to here. We're going to set this one the same, and we're going to set this one the same. So no matter where you put it for right now, it's going to be basically as tame as you can get it. Later on, as you get experience, you can set these differently. And when you do that, you can, have a self-leveling mode here. You could have, a rate mode or a ratitude mode if you wanted to, flips and everything like that. So you can set all different kind of modes on it. But for right now, we're setting everything. So no matter where you put it, it's going to be gentle for you. As gentle as you can get it. Make sure we have to save this. Okay. And we're going to go here. And this just lets you know what's happening. You see when you move the mode switch. Okay. We're not going to do anything here. Again, there's tons of things you can do here. We're just touching it, but this will get you flying well. When we installed the CC3D controller, we turned it 90 degrees to the left, if you remember. This is where we're going to compensate for that. We turned it 90 degrees to the left, and we're going to hit save. And now we're going to re-level the quad, because when you do mess with this, you need to re-level it. And we're going to save it. The transmitter again is just saying it's idle too long. So we set this to 90 and we re-leveled it. We're not doing anything with this. You can set different rates here, and you can really increase the sensitivity on your quad if you get into flips and all that. But for right now, we're keeping it tame as it can be right now. Again, tons of things you can do in here. We're not using a gimbal, nothing there. So we should be in pretty good shape. Let's go ahead and arm it.
Armed.
Now it's telling you that it's armed, and it's only going to let you know that it's armed whenever it's connected to the computer. When we're out in the field and when we fly it, you'll see you get no sound at all. The only way you know it's armed is if you give it a little bit of throttle. A little bit of throttle. You give it too much, and we'll go over that when we fly it. Just small movements is what you need. Anyway, we armed it, and you can hear the motors, they all fired up. Whenever you turn them on, and you'll notice it took just that much to get them to turn. So that's what I'm saying. Just be real careful whenever you're giving it first power until you get used to it. Very small movements. In fact, small movements on everything. You'll get used to it after a while, but especially in the throttle. If you go to there, it's going to the moon real quick. But whenever you ease it up and the motors all start turning, they should all start at the same time. If they're not, or if they don't, you need to go through the ESC calibration again. That's one reason why we did it twice, because it didn't give quite the sound you should have heard whenever we were calibrating it. Just make sure they all start up at one time, or run it back through and do the ESC calibration once again. But they're all starting up at one time. And we verified motor location, we verified rotation, everything's good with that. Let's go the opposite way, and you'll see that it disarmed it. Let's arm it again.
Armed.
Let's disarm it. And there you go. You're ready to fly now. So next we're going to do is install the props, and we're going to take it out and fly it a little bit. This is Danny. We'll see you next time. One final thing I almost forgot. Let's check our failsafe. And what needs to happen is that if you lose connection between your transmitter and your quad, whether it's reception or battery power, your transmitter battery ran too low, you want it to just stop all the motors. It'll drop out of the sky, it'll crash, but that's what you want. If failsafe has not been checked and you're flying and something happens between the transmitter and the quad, it'll just keep flying at your last setting. So let's check failsafe. On this particular transmitter, there was nothing we needed to do to have failsafe work. Some of them you have to do some certain settings with it. But the good thing about this, we didn't have to do anything at all, but we definitely want to check it and make sure it's okay. So let's arm the motors.
Armed.
And let's run them up. And let's turn off the transmitter like we had a problem with it. It turned off the motors. That's exactly what we want. We want it to go, stop running, and we want it to go to the ground. So this just verifies that failsafe is working. And again, it's working there. So make sure failsafe is operable. If it's not, so when you turn this off, if the motors kept running, definitely want to dig into it and find out why it's doing that. Great thing about this, we didn't have to do anything, but yours may be a little bit different. Double check it, make sure failsafe works.